just
Yeah, with Lex.
there we go.
Okay, yeah, with Lex and uh man, I forgot her name. I hadn't talked to her in a while.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Kelly Dietz.
Yeah, Kelly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
She's a homegirl from Cali. So
yeah. Okay. Are you from California too?
yeah,
Oh wow, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working with them for about a year and some change now. I've been doing mostly cinematography work, and I've been kind of learning more how to do more history based stuff. It's always fascinating to me, and I'd like to learn more about our people and the stuff that's near us. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia, like Central Virginia. And recently we went to DC to try to talk to more people about Project Harmony, and we would get different inputs on the state of affairs, because we know it's been a while since everybody kind of like reconvened and talked about that. I learned that you were probably one of the most active people in helping us do um a lot of the support driven stuff in the project. So I wanted to say thank you first off. And it's really a pleasure to get to hear from you. And also the fact that like it's amazing you are a Douglas descendant. That is incredible, sir. How does it make you feel? Like what is that like?
it's there's the pride is great in knowing that. And like I always tell people though that for me, the most important thing that I was given from my mother's growing up as a Douglas is I grew up as Kevin Greene.
Mm.
So I know I grew up getting to know more about myself before uh, taking on the responsibility of being a Douglas. Um,
Mm.
so there's really no overwhelming existence on having to be a Douglas and representing Douglas. It's just a matter of my pride and other family members' pride on what we do. And it's not something that we feel like it's something that we have to do. It's something that we want to do and we enjoy doing. So yeah, so that's how it works for me. And one thing you said is that I am a definitely from, and I won't say necessarily well as far as Hassan, I guess is concerned, but from the beginning of the project, because I remember hearing about the gravestones were, years ago, the story that the gravestones were taken somewhere, and until really Lex got, from my experience is where Lex Muster got this ball rolling. I know he didn't roll it all by himself, but uh, when he started really reaching out and getting those contacts and everything, I I thought it was interesting. And then once we found out where everything was, I was like, okay, good. Let's go ahead and be a part of this. But one of the things is really because I know that was like 2020 when I know I first went down to Virginia and saw where the land, the senator's land, and where the stones were on the river.
So
And then in 21, I went back, and in between that time, where you say I'm one of those main supporters, uh, I rebut that. What I mean by that is that I know there's things been going on in between that time frame where there's some people that's been sticking in there doing stuff with. I know there was the list of names. People were transposing those names over and different things that are more local that have the ability to do more stuff. So I can't claim that being the number one supporter of all this because I haven't done some of the some of the work that other people have been doing. So definitely want to make sure that those folks that are you kind of like you say boots on the ground type people
Yeah,
that's been there because I've been kind of separated from it for about maybe because we're in 2024, so for about 2 years now, I kind of keep I keep my ear open, but I just haven't been that person who's been in contact like I was at the beginning, but I'm definitely still a supporter. So
yeah, and we super grateful for that too. Um,
yeah,
I never, excuse me, I never got a chance to be there. I wish I could have to actually see the stones when some of them were transplanted and just the first reaction of actually being there on the water. What did you feel when you were there? What was that like?
that was I mean it was interesting to say the least. Just to to one we had the route we had to go to get there from the senator's house and back through the woods, then finally get to the opening of where they can access at least the part of the river that we were able to find some of the stones and having to you know uh, kind of look through and then find and see because I'm used to so I grew up on the coast of the ocean, Monterey, California. So I'm used to a rocky shore type of environment where you can walk on the rocks and look for crabs and blah blah blah, right? But to walk on the rocks and looking around and all of a sudden you see a rock that has writing on it that's what you're looking for gravestones. So when you see something that has writing on it, it's a gravestone, and then you know you start in your head the story of how they got there just really comes to you know fact that this is a fact. It's not just a story that these and once the certain stones were able to be brought out and the names are able to be seen and the register of names of knowing that yeah these are names of gravestones that were at Harmony Cemetery uh when these people were laid to rest, and now they're digging these stones out of is that the Potomac?
I think it was, yeah, the
Yeah,
Potomac.
I just have to make sure because because I'm sometimes used to the Chesapeake, so yeah, the Potomac, and that the things did happen the way that they said it happened, and and when when they started talking about the history of how the what happened with the cemetery, how everything was moved or supposed to be moved,
Right,
is that you think they were these were truckloads of these stones and monuments and everything and probably earth to go with it that you're thinking well man what's the possibility if some of the bodies ended up in that same pile of riffraff type of thing. So,
yeah,
it's sad, and the information about it is that, when people start looking at things, they realize, this wasn't the first time that it's happened. Found it wasn't the last time that it's happened. And so then when, especially when they did these, I guess the CBS Sunday morning shoot of it, and then other communities that knew and had heard the stories of the same thing happening, you started hearing more and more of black cemeteries being uh, moved for development and cemetery, and then not only being moved for development that and it also brought to mind, because I don't know as far as how old you are and what you can remember, because I remember telling Kelly, I said, this reminds me of the movie Poltergeist. They built the community over the graveyard,
Hmm.
and I was like, they moved the stones, but they didn't move the bodies.
Right.
And then to come to find out that was some of the case in this case too, is when they were doing development, other development later, that they were still finding where the bodies weren't moved like they were told that they were. So that, I mean, that's more of the sad piece of this than the actual stones in my mind. The stones were just are not just, but they are a representation of individuals. But to find out in the backstory that not only were these monuments and headstones and everything not given the respect that the souls and bodies of some of these individuals were even given less respect by the fact that people were told that they were moved and reinterred in a different location when they actually weren't.
Yeah. Yeah. I 1,000% agree with that. And that's
Mhm.
when I read through some of the newspaper clippings, it was like it's just you just imagine like, man, how could somebody just not even have like the proper respect to treat these things with care? Like that's just crazy. Like I can imagine like if somebody was to see these stones and to actually see their last name and they're from that area, like I'll imagine it would be like, wow, like I
I mean, I mean, it's sad to say when you think about that. Well, you know, in a lot of cases, they weren't respected in life. So the fact that they were, just as disrespected in death as they were in life, it's in some cases it's not surprising to people. But then in the 20th, 21st century, it is surprising in a way to think, well, how can people be that way just go back to the 20th century. Well, when they did it, they were only, you know, because that was from what I remember, the cemetery was moved in I believe it was like 61, because that's when I was born. So I kind of remember that
mm,
time frame. It was the, early 60s that they, wasn't that far removed from the segregation and all that stuff. And then people think, well, that was Washington D.C. That wasn't the Deep South. Well, really, really didn't matter, because it was just as racism was just as bad there as it was anywhere else in the country. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And they I
And
mean
then and then you add in and then
in
of course
America too.
you add in politics and business into it. You put dollar signs on it. Well,
Yeah.
how much can we get away with without having to spend this much, and what can we get away with without having to do this, and who's actually paying attention, and you know who's who, who's going to say something about it, and if they do, how much pull do they have compared to the amount of money and the politicians that we have backing us, type of things. And that's pretty much the way seems like that it happened. But this is a different time now, so it was. And so, like what Lex was talking about, it wasn't just enough to find these stones, and to get and the amount of resources and time that it's gonna take, because it's still in that process,
Yeah.
to be able to find what because they were talking about like a 2 mile stretch of of coastline, and that was only maybe 100 meters of coastline that we were looking at that time. and how over time sediment and all that, that how much stuff is under sediment, and getting, the what was that, Corps of Engineers to help, and
Yeah.
then at the, creating two memorial sites, one there at the shoreline, and then creating the memorials by taking the headstones back to Maryland, and have that memorial site there. So that's a lot of insight, and it takes not only the the resources of getting the different governments, but also the resources of and the uh, agreements and cooperation of families too. Because there's some families that kind of like, you know of course, there's some families you'll never be able to track them down,
Right.
because some of the families might not even exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's some that, honestly, really, when I say they don't care, it's just the fact that they really just don't want to have to go through all the things that it goes through. It happened. It unfortunately it happened. It is what it is. Move on, type of thing. And then of course there's those that really, really, really upset. I wasn't one of those who was really, really, really upset. I was one of those who realized these things happen. What I mean by these things happen is that, uh, not like, well, it happens, oh well. It was like, well, that's part of reality, that it happened. Okay, what can I help? What can I do to help? Not just as a Douglas, because I had, several different family members that were buried there. As recent as at that time, as recent as my grandfather and my grandmother. But uh, it's the fact that, there are families that don't have the quote unquote notoriety as being a Douglas, but they're families. So they're just as important as our family. Every other family is just as important as our family. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
So, what would you like to see done moving forward in the future? Because they're already in the process of still trying to repatriotize the headstones too. But what do you think about just this complete experience, and what do you think that people like us can do to be more proactive in helping those families in situations like that?
That's a good question. One is that, part of the project was getting those names and putting them in a where they're accessible, the database, where
Hmm.
they would be accessible for those people who, I'm sure there's families that still haven't heard about what's going on. And as families find out, they hear about what's going on, and they think or know that there's possibility that they had a family member there, that of course this database gives people a chance to use our electronic availabilities now, and go online and find out if one of their family members. And then, of course, uh, the realization of, and I can't remember the amount, but it was it over was it over 50,000, I think. I can't remember the numbers of that the cemetery had at the time, but in the tens of thousands of family members that were buried there. So again, the realization of how many actual memorials and headstones that you're actually going to find is based on the material that the headstones were made out of. So as we've seen, we find the granite, which not all. How many families could afford granite headstones? And so those are the ones that are that are, once they're cleaned off, they look like they were just put down yesterday.
Right.
And then you find those that have deteriorated, that and then you get to the bottom line that there's just the ones that were wood and sandstone. You're never going to be able to find a headstone. And then there are some people that, even today you go to cemeteries that there is no headstone. So you can't go by the fact that, okay, um, you can kind, you can kind of, because the idea is that every, from my understanding, just, every person that was there was supposed to be reinterred in the, is it, is it New Harmony now, where over by JFK Stadium? Not JFK, but the new stadium. The cemetery.
I'm not exactly sure on the new name for it now. I thought it had the
Yeah,
same name, but I need to double check that.
yeah, but where they're at, so I guess the whole idea is that they're supposed to be accounted for over at the new place.
Right,
And I've only been there once. That's why I can't really remember the name that well. But there was supposed to be a representation, and and then again, it's that idea is that there's that just opens, that the headstones, and the as they went and did projects on the land where the cemetery originally was, and they find you find out that uh, not all the bodies were moved as they were supposed to be. Uh, so that's another part of Pandora's box is okay. So how do we identify? And then there's the other part is like, well, can you get there isn't, in my mind, can you guarantee that my family member is in the place where you say they're supposed to be in the
right.
new cemetery?
Yeah.
That's there's a Pandora's box there that's just so it's so big. So how do you simplify it to satisfy everyone? It's just a matter of how far certain people want to go. Certain people are so mad that they would want to go the whole way, and they shouldn't have to spend a dime to do it.
Right,
Um, and then again, where's that middle ground? We just can't forget, but we have to find a way to represent. And from what was been laid out, I think that's the idea. And I don't remember, I'm not sure because I haven't been as involved informational wise of where we're at on the project now, is that you know definitely the government entities, because it involves Virginia, Maryland, and the Principality of Washington D.C. Um, being involved with the funding to be able to make these different things happen. So again, for me to, I'd have to find out where we're at now to determine to say, okay, is everything on course going as planned? It's probably going slower than it originally would have liked to happen, but you've got to put a shorter fuse on certain things, expecting it to the fuse you think it's a short fuse that you want it to happen, but that fuse is going to burn slow, because that's just the reality, especially when you're dealing with government budgets and stuff like that. I mean, uh, if you can get private donors, I mean, we know there's there's so many people in this country with enough money to take care of the project with just the swoop of a pen, that we wouldn't even need the government uh, resources to get it done, which is it's not a matter of begging people to do something. It's a matter of someone so just realizing that they have the opportunity to make a difference in this case. Because I know most of the families, I'm sure there's some families that generationally has uh, you know can have some generational income that can help. Um, but they shouldn't, shouldn't be expected to foot that whole bill either. So I don't know that, I don't know how well I answered your question. It's just a matter of where we're at now compared to what the end goal was with the different phases uh, of the project. So
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, and I appreciate you saying that too. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm really glad that you could find the time to talk to me about this stuff, and I'm learning too more. Still
mhm,
kind of being newer in the project too as well.
okay.
And if possible, I'd like to keep in touch with you so that we can provide more updates about where we are in the process too as well.
Yeah, well, I need, and I know I need to reach out to Lex, and I know, you know, Kelly with I see a little bit on her sometime, but she bounces in and out of Facebook. So um and that, with her actual job there in Virginia, of what she does. So it's just to get, a little bit more back into the fold of like you said, of informational, so that I, can be, more of an asset. The more I know, the more I might be able to. Uh, so yeah, to include in, especially in when I go do other things, to include this into uh, the information that I put out. Because typically, I'm dealing with Doug. This is part of Douglas family. But I do stuff with Douglas family stuff, but to reintroduce the Hassan, New Harmony Cemetery project back into the information that I provide. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
so thank
that
you for basically bringing it back to my you know my frontal lobe to where to where it's not like I forgot about the thing at all. It's just that I had not been involved, so it was just kind of like in the back of my head. Even though I know, I still know that the project is going on.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
thank
and
you so much too.
yeah, I see your flag up there in your background.
Yeah, it was my stepdad was in the Air Force.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What branch were you in?
Army. Yeah,
Okay,
my side retired and my father retired from.
okay, that's cool. Yeah, and your cousin, Mr. Terrence Bailey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also in the Army too as well, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Nah, that's cool.
yeah. And what you saw? Where you saw him? Where in?
We
You
drove
were.
up. We drove up from Lynchburg to Denton. He was in Denton, Maryland,
Oh, and
and we
you
interviewed
contacted
him.
him and met up with him.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Because he had came to. I believe it was. Which one did he come? I think it was when we did. Yeah, when we recovered this the ceremony they had with the what's it called, the basically the exchange of the stones, when they had the representatives from
oh yeah, yeah,
Virginia, DC, because the mayor from DC, the governor from Virginia, and the governor from Maryland were all there,
yeah,
and did that little ceremonial exchange thing. That was in, yeah, and that was like what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm super grateful for your time, Mr. Greene.
Hmm.
We have a few more people to talk to, and yeah, I'll try to keep you updated as much as I can, especially when they send newer stuff over to me.
Yeah.
Because we really appreciate your voice in this community too.
Okay, great. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
All right, no problem at all. Just yeah, keep in touch and yeah, I'm gonna reach back out to Lex so I
Okay.
can get his insight on where y'all are at too. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you so much, sir. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Thank you.